Story. Thank you, Jan. We've been talking technology right through this conference, and almost to the hour, 15,800 kilometres away this time last week, I was down at my daughter and son-in-law's place, and we've got, from that side, 3 grandchildren running from 18 to about 16. And I asked us if they had a newspaper. And one of the grandchildren said, "Grandpa, you're out of date." And my son-in-law said, "We don't use newspapers down here. No newspapers at all. You've got to get with the times. Here, borrow my iPad." I tell you, the fly didn't know what hit him. Was that too slow? I've got to work out how to drive this. Inaccuracies that will lead to deficiency in your system's performance. Now, we've often heard that conditions were terrible. That really gets up my nose. We don't blame conditions. There could be stuff you've missed. Given the time constraints, I'll try to address some of the common problems that lead to deficiencies in your performance. And, of course, we're talking EME here. For some delegates here today, it may appear a tad basic, but for those others, I hope you will gain knowledge from one who has made the mistakes himself. So let's treat this as a bit of a refresher. Please refer to my conference papers for far more detail than I'll give today. I'll address the dish antenna, choosing the right feed, aligning the feed. The Yagis will have a quick look at Yagis with feed line losses, and low noise amplifiers, which we've been talking today, avoiding losses in those as well. Operating techniques, and when you see scores from smaller stations, you've got to wonder, how do they do it? And there's a lot to be done by operating techniques. We'll go to dishes for a start. Originally, if you're going to start out, you want to know whether to use a polar or an Azel mount. Now, if you're going to use terrestrial, you can pretty well give away the polar mount. But don't dismiss it. There's some here today who use polar mounts, and remember, you really only have to track in one way. Choosing the best F&D and mesh size. Are we going to go for low noise or a high gain as far as the antenna goes? Matching your F over D with your feed type. That's so very important. Do you go for a dual mode or a Kuma type feed? It all depends on the type of F over D and dish you're going to use and the ease of construction. Now, those that have built IMU horns always have the trouble in construction. Those that are using Xanax type feeds and so forth, you can do it pretty easily in a workshop. So that becomes part of your questions and how you're going to go about it. You can determine the performance of your dish without even starting in your workshop, and that's where my software comes into it. If you look at a dual mode horn, and you can, actually Al asked me if I'm going to provide a Doug's talk. Was it a Doug software for dummies, what Al wanted, but we'll worry about that later. So a dual mode horn with a 0.43 F over D, the spillover in this particular case, and it comes from Paul's calculations, which we've rolled into my software, it's got a spillover of 6% or 13 degrees Kelvin. If, for instance, I was to maximise that, you'll notice the efficiency has gone from 70 to 77, has gone up. However, the spillover has increased to 33 degrees Kelvin. So what's happened, the F over D for W2IMU with a F over D of 0.43 is better than the optimising it for maximum gain. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not always maximum gain. You notice that the echoes have decreased, and both your son and both your sun noise and your echoes are decreased, even though you've increased the gain. Why? Spillover. Now, that's not very good, the colours. In the software, that's only just a small fraction of the feeds that are available. If you used a VK3UM EME super type feed, you'd notice you'd have to have an F/D of 0.3. That would duplicate what I'm doing with an IMU. So what I'm trying to say here, whatever F/D, if you buy a dish or get hold of a dish, you've got to know the F/D, and you've got to match your feed to that F/D. If you're starting off from square one, you can use the software to design the whole thing. Now, aligning the feed in the dish. Now, there's just at home with the feed, and it appears that the feed is absolutely aligned as far as the sun goes. Well, that's a start, but there's more stuff you may have missed. In that example, although the shadow appears perfectly central in the dish and the ASL indicators correspond to the sun's position, the alignment may not be true. Now, peek your dish on sun noise. It may not correspond exactly. Why? Well, the feed is not perfectly aligned in the dish. That's something that's most difficult to see by eye from the shadow. So don't use the shadow as an indication that you've got it right. How to align it? With great difficulty and with considerable patience. In this particular case, I haven't got the pointer, I don't know if there's a pointer on here, but you can see that on the left-hand side, the 1296 feed, you pull the back off that, and Jark described it in Dearbus. He stole my thunder. Uses a laser pointer. Well, I do too, but the little press buttons on those, you've got to do away with them, because if you're going to lay the laser flat in the bottom of the feed, you've got to do away with that, otherwise it kinks up. So you use external batteries and all of that. What I do here is I take the bottom off it and I line it up. Have we got a pointer? High tech, you see. I'm out of...
That's probably better for your purposes.
Righto. Can find the switch. Okay, take the back off there, lay this laser pointer in there, and you'll see where it ends up on the middle of the dish. And I lay it on top of the actual probes on one side and the probes on the other, and lay it flat on that. And I adjust the tilt of the actual here to get, there's 4 around here to actually line the thing up. Well, that's a start. Next thing is you've got to adjust the feed distance, and I do that with 1-inch bolts that hold this actual ring. That ring, mind you, weighs 34 kilos, that thing there. My daughter helped me pull that up there. She's strong. Finally, check the alignment with a laser pointer, as I described. It's frustrating, it's time-consuming, and it's sure to try your patience. But it's one of the most beneficial adjustments you'll make. And 5 centimetres in the distance up and down where the feed is can make anything up to 3 dB, I found. When I first put that in there, my calculation showed that I was 3 dB short on sun noise. Right, we turned our attention to Yagis. I'm being brief, I'm trying to catch up time. What a magnificent array. 24 bay, that comes from a previous QTH. It made a hell of a dim. Absolutely fantastic. One minor problem, had a noise temperature of about 180 degrees K. It was a very, very noisy antenna. Why? I had 4-way power dividers, heliacs between the all, and then to all heliacs all the way through. But you add the losses up on that and you're down the tube big time. So although it transmitted very well, it made a lot of noise, my hearing was very, very poor. It was excellent forward gain on transmit. It was a perfect alligator antenna. You know what an alligator is? Big mouth and little ears. Okay, Yagi antenna the right way. Rainer, bless his soul, DJ Noah BV, after a few beers at about 5 a.m. in Torn in 1988, as Ian just described, said, look, you're not hearing, it's obviously wrong. When you get back home, give me all the materials you can buy in VK and we'll roll you up a specification for a decent antenna, which he duty did. They're all BVs. It's not that you notice the dipole construction, but what is new, Jan was the first to use wire feed lines, to my knowledge, on 432. And if anyone hasn't heard Jan's signal on 432, you haven't been listening. But I used a 1/4-inch aluminium tube, which immediately meant aluminium soldering and things like that. But you'll notice it's all open feed lines, the whole lot, to a single balun. And that provided a noise temperature of around about 50 K. And the difference in hearing was magic. Less forward gain, but being able to hear people makes a bit of difference when you're trying to work people. Now, this is a bit of an embarrassment, but we've all probably made mistakes. This is my original 432 antenna, combining, you might say. There's, in those days, the LNA. And I had 4 dipoles, 2 vertical, 2 horizontal. And they came in on these ports there and the antenna relay, changeover relay and so forth. Now, when I redesigned it, that's the number of connectors I reclaimed out of the preamp box. Embarrassing, eh? This is the right way to do it, and this is what I use now. Gazinter in, power in, the 2 HF400 relays stacked and the LNA connected right to the port. Here are the 2 combiners that go directly to the vertical and horizontal dipoles. So literally, there's connector there on the dipoles, of course, connector there, and then connector on there and the preamp. And that's about the lowest you can get. Now, I note that the talk yesterday about using the FHZ type feeds, what do you call them? The like dish feeds, circular feeds. Fine, but that's a plug and play type antenna. If you want to change bands, you've got to change antennas. I wanted the facilities of operating 432 and 1296 without changing. In fact, I got caught horribly one contest when I called CQ on both bands simultaneously and got responses. Didn't do it again. Now, this is the 432 array. There's the horn there, probe straight on there. You notice no commercial U interconnect into the relay, into the preamplifier and a termination on that. That's minimal. Maybe if I put an SMA here, I would have done away with that connector there. So that's a little bit of improvement. But that's about as best as you can do. Because your horn, your actual probe's just in there. And the preamp out is separate, goes on a separate line. Now remember, you'll not increase your receptance, adding new call signs to a database. Receiver sensitivity is an absolute measurable quantity and defined by parameters alone that you can improve. Now I'll move on to operating techniques, the good, bad and the ugly. The first key to success is to listen to the other station and follow his lead. Try to match his sending speed and timing. He may be following a timing sequence and sending fast or slow to match his Faraday or libration conditions. So listen to what's going on. Use recognisable codes. YYY means sending your own call sign as he has yours. How often does this happen? Someone will come back to me after I send YYYs and I copy my call sign perfectly and then he sends his and we lost it. So that's what it means. I've got your call sign, just send yours. Now, the other one that is very, very useful when you've got hard, strong libration conditions is send VVV, KKK, send your individual letters, your call sign, 3 times. The smarter operators tweak to that and come straight back. But remember that makes it very, very easy. Now remember, some of us have got a very limited window and we've got a lot of people calling at one time. And mucking around to try to get someone's call sign in amongst a whole bevy of others, that helps a hell of a lot. Always use exaggerated space between the start and the end of the call signs. Don't run them together. Leave a decent sort of space between your call sign and the other one. It makes it so much easier from the other end. In a pile-up, try not to zero beat. Even move off as far as a KC. Most experienced stations will be looking for a fast QSO. Michael and Monica, we use that all the time. And one guy, and you'll notice that when Mike comes up on a XXX location, I'm either first or second to work him. And some have said, we haven't heard you working. I said, we work while you were still calling, because we slipped off and we were probably about 30 words a minute, and we exchanged call signs, it's all over. Anyway, so that's another way. Don't zero beat, because the bloke at the other end, all he wants to hear was hearing a cacophony of single carriers. Do the right thing and don't call the station worked on his frequency. Move to a side, giving sufficient elbow room, and call there. If you're a weak station and you've just worked a big station, listen for such calls first, either side, and if there's no calls, no one calling you, move to the designated low signal, weak signal area and call CQ there. Most of us have got SDRs. That's what you call it, you know what I mean. And we'll be looking for stations there. Just don't give up, because a lot of us will be listening for what's going on, and if you come up and you work a big station, the rest of the big stations or everyone else say, he's new. But we can't call him because someone called him afterwards. If you try that, it's bad manners. Some do it, and it's not really nice. But if you're a weak station, move up into 025 or wherever and call there, and you will be surprised that there'll be pounce stations will find you. They've heard you before. They want to know where you're going to appear next, and that's what you get around that one. This one is one we should all be aware of. Beware the ground noise interference situation. Often you may, on your moonrise, be tempted to call CQ before you lose ground noise, which may well be masking an existing QSO. Look for someone calling CQ or is in QSO during the time when you have maximum sensitivity masked by ground noise. In other words, as soon as the moon rises, hearing echoes, and you come up, you might be sitting right on top of someone else, and they won't be impressed. Try not to become an alligator, a station with a big mouth and small ears. Match your transmitted power with your receiver sensitivity. Going over the top with excessive power will not enhance your reputation, only harm others. And there's a few around that do that. Switching to SSB during a CW contest in the middle of an active portion of the band will certainly do you no good either. Be thoughtful of others. Nothing worse than a willy wagger. English people here will know what I mean. Don't assume that the other station is copying you as well as you're copying him. That's important. I think most of us, we know if the other bloke's copying us okay. I work random like most of us do. And when we lift the key and we hear their echoes and the other guy comes straight back, you know he's copying you. But if there's a pregnant pause, you know, don't expect a 559, which it will be anyway. But you know when you can actually go into fast break-in and get the QS over quickly. And finally, remember the safety of family and your neighbours and yourself. Know your own electromagnetic radiation, EMA, safe working distance, and always keep within its bounds. No EME or terrestrial QSO, for that matter, is worth endangering personal lives. Now, it scares me to see the number of high-powered PAs that people are obviously snowflaking and so forth with them turned on. I used to be in charge of broadcasting the whole of Vic and Tasmania. And all my laboratories and all my technicians I had working on it, we had holiday meters, and every piece of equipment we measured at a safe distance. And a lot of these PAs, and I'm talking for UHF TV, up to 20 watts, were above maximum exposure level. Now, guys, we're working on 13 centimetres. Now, how close is that to a microwave oven? Frequency. So beware. And where it will affect you is in your corneas and so forth. So I'm just saying that just be aware of the EMR. I've got software there to help you. And I'll tell you what, even a 3-metre dish and 100 watts or 500 watts at it on the horizon, you're going to scorch people of many metres away. So any questions? Thank you, gentlemen.